Hello, Bruce Feldman. Good to see you here on the Rich Eisen Show.
Rich.
Bruce Feldman from Fox Sports and The Athletic, kind enough to join us here in the Honda Insider Report. We'll get to Oklahoma in a second, but you spent the week with LSU prior to the Tigers going into Atlanta and boat racing Georgia in the SEC championship game. What did you learn from being embedded with Ed Orgeron and his staff and his team for the week?
There's a ton of confidence that this team has, and I think what you see is like they were really locked in. A lot of times you'll see a lot of goofing off, especially as like this is a different kind of week. They all went to the site on Thursday as opposed to going traveling on a Friday. There was a bunch of walkthroughs, but you saw a team that was both really locked in but extremely loose. And I thought, just having been around Orgeron before when he was at Ole Miss and certainly around USC, I knew they would ramp up the energy in a big way before kickoff, and that did come. But just, I really think you see a lot of people who are very comfortable with their roles, and you feel like, I don't know, the spread was like 6 points. By the time I got to the Dome on Saturday, I was like, they're going to beat these guys by like 2 touchdowns. Just because you just see, it's like, it doesn't matter what they're going to do. Our offense is going to score 40 plus on them, and they feel like their defense is a lot better than what people had made it out to be because they had a really bad performance in the second half the week after Alabama against Ole Miss. Well, some of that was because some guys were hurt. Their best defensive player, Grant Delpit, was playing with a high ankle sprain. He's healthy now. I think as great as Joe Burrow has been, and he's been great, I think people saw they may have the best defensive back in the country. It's not Grant Delpit. It's Derek Stingley, who's a true freshman. I mean, if the Thorpe Award was voted this week and he was a finalist, he'd probably win it. I think people saw how good he is, and I think you saw how good the receivers are, how good the running back is. It's a lot more than just Joe Burrow, but I think you're seeing a team that keeps going up, and it's like, I think that they feel like they're destined to win a national title, and whoever they have to play, they're going to light them up.
Well, I want to continue on, obviously called the Insider Report. I want to get a little bit more inside here, and I know this sounds maybe insulting to ask this, but it's not, because I just want to know how it all works. What does Orgeron do? I mean, what's his, because everything you said, everyone's comfortable in their roles. Clearly, the head man delegating and making sure everybody is comfortable in their roles, or their roles are perfect for their fit, is exactly what a head coach is supposed to do. But walk me through what you see from Orgeron there, Bruce.
You know, so much has been made about how the guy used to go 180 miles an hour and grind his team so much, has done the opposite, and it's true. This is a team that they don't have staff meetings every day. That's unusual in college football. They have one on Monday morning, and that's it. And then it's like basically their offensive guys work with the offensive guys, defensive guys do what they're doing, special teams and everything. But I think he's been really good at not only delegating, but he sets the tone of what they expect. If there's issues, they come to him with him. But I think they don't practice very long late in the year. I mean, their practices, I want to say, the Wednesday practice might have been an hour 20. Back in the Les Miles days, it would be twice that long in November. So I think he's become really smart about understanding the science about athletes and how they respond to it. And I also think what he's being really good at, I think he has a real good feel for the team. And everything is kind of focused in on, okay, what are we going to do here? Are we going to be really good with the details? And so I remember back in the spring when I was there, certain kind of drills that they would set up where he'll sit in there with his defensive line staff, and they'll watch practice, and then he can report back to the offensive line guys, because he knows at the end of the day, as great as Joe Burrow and those receivers are, it's a game in the trenches. And so a lot of the specific stuff that he is really kind of drilling down on, the technique stuff, and then he'll get back to the individual coaches about, hey, these are the things we need to work on with that particular guy. So I think he just has a really great feel for the pulse of each player and where they're at, which I think gets lost, because so much in college football you think about who's really great with the X's and O's and who's really good as a schemer, as a play caller. I think what's really proven to be really impressive about him is he just has a feel for where the team is and the pulse of the team, on a day-to-day sense.
And then, so then how did USC, you mentioned his days at USC, how they miss on him? I mean, was he just not the same guy? He's just not an LA guy because he does sound like he's straight from the water boy, which is perfect for LSU. I mean, I'm serious.
I think what you have is a guy who's continued to evolve. He made a huge jump from when he was at Ole Miss to USC. I think he's made a significant jump after that. But I really think it's a USC issue. You have a lot of people at USC, especially back in that Pat Hayden regime, who couldn't get past what Ed Orgeron sounded like. They didn't listen to the players. They didn't listen to the staff. I think at the end of the day, you had guys who are, Ed Orgeron's not a country club guy. I think he can relate to just about anybody. You see, I mean, the governor of Louisiana was waiting outside the locker room. You can, like, he's very street smart, and I think that's one of the things that made him a really good recruiter is I think he can read people very well. I don't think Pat Hayden, who was the decision maker at the time, that's just not the kind of guy he wanted, and I just don't think he could get past it. And it's not, what's interesting was that I think there were 5 or 6 guys who were old USC guys who were on that staff. And I spent a bunch of time around Marcus Allen, who's a USC great. Orgeron and he became close. He spoke to the team last week before Texas A&M game. Marcus was there on the sideline. John Robinson, legendary coach who was at USC, is now part of their program. And I think you see so many guys who understand what Orgeron is way better than Pat Hayden ever did, and that's why USC is where USC is right now, and LSU is the #1 seed going in the playoffs.
Well, let's put a pin in the USC part of the conversation as we just are with Honda Insider reporter, if you will, if you don't mind me calling you that, from The Athletic and Fox Sports, Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show. Let's put a pin in USC and the other coaching stuff for a second. What is it like being inside the meeting room with Joe Burrow and Joe Brady? You want to talk about a great thing that Orgeron did? He goes and he's like, let's take this young guy who's been around Sean Payton. Let's bring him here to be a passing game coordinator for us. What's it like being in that meeting? Because Joe Burrow's, just to finish the sentence, I'm sitting there watching part of the SEC championship game on the big screen during the NFL Game Day morning meeting. Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer, turns to the screen and he goes, man, where did this Joe Burrow come from? As we're watching him just pinpoint accurate throw through windows that are just inches wide or tall. So what's it like being in that room?
Yeah, a coach's kid who's incredibly smart, way more athletic than people give him credit for. I think we see elements of that, but if you watch it, there's stuff in the design run game that they do. And I think what you mentioned, Joe Brady, and it's easy to get the two confused. Right. They're actually not that much different in age. Joe Brady was a guy who had played at William & Mary, but he had GA'd at Penn State under James Franklin, learned Joe Moorhead's run game, and then took elements of that. They have elements of the Chargers run game because James Craig, who's the offensive line coach, had been with them, been with the Broncos. So that's kind of the run game. And then it's a lot of Saints passing concepts that Joe Brady brought with him. And I mean, Joe Brady's a brilliant young guy. When you see him before, it's kind of an interesting mix of what you're seeing because he's very soft-spoken, yet when the team meals, he's eating with the receivers. Most of the coaches eat with their coaches. Joe Brady eats with the receivers. That's the position he coaches. He comes out in the sharp light silver suit with the light purple tie, yet he's got on the fancy Air Jordans. He's got the headphones. I think players see him as one of them.
So he doesn't talk to Burrow? Is that what you're saying?
He does, but Steve Ensminger, who's the offensive coordinator,
right?
So Joe Brady calls some of the plays with red zone and third downs, and Steve Ensminger handles the rest of it. And I think it's worked out really well because Ensminger, who's been an offensive coordinator for a long time, former LSU quarterback, he's in his early 60s. He has everybody's respect there, and I think the back and forth between the two is impressive because I think you see the game planning. But when it comes to coaching the position, it's really on Ensminger on that side. But I think in terms of what the play calls, what young Joe versus almost not so young Joe want, right. I think a lot of that dialogue happens over the phone, when the defense is on the field. But there were so many walkthroughs where you could see what do you expect. And I think where Joe Brady is really impressive, especially, is with his rapport with the receivers. And I think, so when you look at a guy who goes from 58 or 59% to 79%, and this isn't just a bubble screen offense.
This is crazy.
They're taking shots. I think it's really how much what Joe Brady's done with the whole passing game. And really, the receivers have gotten so much better. And I think what Joe Burrow has done is the timing he has developed with all those kids, and a lot of them are a little younger than him, but taking them out, it's 100 degrees and 100% humidity in Baton Rouge in the summer. And I think where you see plays that take off, those are things that they have so many different options within a play. And I think you have such a savvy trigger man that's making it work. I think that's why this offense, and they also have a great running back in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who is really good.
I love him, man.
Yeah, he's really special because he is so good in the pass game. And I think you have a lot of kids right now who are really smart. You have Randy Moss's son, Thaddeus, who's not 6'5", but he's really emerged as a weapon. So you have 3 dynamic receivers, kind of a tight end, even though they split him out a lot, and a running back. So you're looking at 5 wide a lot of times. And these SEC defenses have no clue how to deal with it because he operates it so well.
A few more minutes left with Bruce Feldman here in the Honda Insider Report. I guess having spent the first 8 some odd minutes of this Honda Insider Report talking about LSU, we're making Dabo Swinney's point here that they are the defending champs. They haven't lost a game. They are 3rd overall. So what is the College Football Playoff Committee saying to Dabo Swinney? That he's obviously balling up and he's using it about nobody believes in us. But what is the message here, do you think?
You play in a league that was really down this year. I don't think it was no fault of their own. They played 2 SEC teams in their non-conference, so I think credit to Clemson for scheduling them. It's not their fault. The ACC is way down this year. The ACC, Florida State had a coaching change. Miami had a coaching change last year. Virginia Tech was inconsistent. I think you look at some of these other teams. Virginia had a nice year, but there was nobody really that was a legitimate top 15 team or even close to that around them. And so if you want to ding Clemson for anything, you almost lost to a North Carolina team that was barely bowl eligible. But after that, I mean, they were crushing everybody else. So I think Clemson knows, and Dabo can say, hey, say what he's going to say. I mean, at the end of the day, if they handle their business against Ohio State, it doesn't matter where you are, 1, 2, or 3, or 4. I think they're as dangerous a team as there is because they have so much firepower, and Trevor Lawrence has done it on a big stage. These other guys have done it. They haven't done it on the grand stage, and he did it against Alabama where, to me, it's almost like, Mike Tyson was beaten more than once, but it was when Buster Douglas knocked him out that it was like, whoa. And that's what it felt like with Clemson because they just blew them off the field. It wasn't even close. So I think everybody has, like Dabo, but I think everybody has, if you don't respect Clemson, you're kidding yourself. I mean, we'll see what happens against Ohio State. I think that's going to be a great matchup. This will be as good a semifinal game as I think we've had in the playoff era.
And what are the chances that LSU makes it, Alabama doesn't, but it's Jalen Hurts that beats them anyway? How remarkable would that be that Jalen Hurts?
He's 3-0 against LSU so far now.
That's what I mean. And if again, I know that they're in the committee, they're not supposed to match teams up with storylines and levels of interest. But to me, the fact that Alabama's former quarterback, who doesn't get a shot in Alabama anymore because of Tua, goes to Oklahoma and is the one that shows up and takes on LSU in the first round, I think that is just a chef's kiss, delicious meal that's possible.
I'm guessing nobody probably appreciates that more than the quarterback in Norman, Oklahoma. I mean, we did 4 of his games this year at Fox, and I remember talking to him before, maybe before they played Iowa State late in the year. And at one point he said to me, this is a couple of days before the game, he was talking about just being new, whereas Kyler Murray and Baker, who both obviously won Heisman's, they'd been there 3 years and had a chance to get to know everybody. He didn't. And he talked about changing the culture there. And I said, "Whoa, 2 guys just won Heisman's. It's not like you just took over Kansas football." And he goes, "Listen, I've been to 3 national titles in a row." Yeah. So, and we're just hung there. And so he has a really high standard. It's right below the surface with him. He's not lacking for confidence. And we'll see. Their defense got better as the year went on. It is definitely not what the other 3 teams have, but they do have, talking to NFL scouts, Kenneth Murray, he will be a first-round pick. He's in the middle of their defense. Right. Neville Gallimore's a big-time guy. It's those other guys in the secondary. The secondary is a big concern. They do not have the kind of personnel that you want to see from a playoff team in the secondary, at least. And that's what Joe Burrow is going to be attacking. So if Oklahoma's going to win that game, it may have to be a 55-51 kind of game.
And that Georgia can't beat LSU, can't get into the college football playoff because of that, but Justin Fields does. And he has the opportunity to knock off Clemson, or maybe then also knock off LSU. I mean, that is another delicious sort of
Yeah, there's a lot of
there.
vengeance I'm seeing coming from your desk right now.
I'm trying to just.
There are good subplots, no doubt,
Right.
and I think what you have there too. Also, by the way, our friend Trent Dilfer, must have been like 3 years ago. I remember going to his Elite 11,
Right.
and the two most talented quarterbacks. And I think Trent probably has said this to you before. The two most talented quarterbacks I think he's ever had come through there are the guys who are matching up in that bowl game. Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, both Georgia guys, by the way, both from the state. They're not from far away. Both big, really athletic kids with terrific arms. Trent will probably tell you, I think he thought Justin might have even been even more talented than Trevor, at least back then. I don't know where people view it now, but that shows you, the talent we have with these quarterbacks in this Final Four.
Are you surprised that the new athletic director in USC, Mike Bohn, said to Clay Helton, stick around?
I was probably about 10 days before it came to that, because I started calling. We did a big story about it on The Athletic, how Mike Bohn, the AD, and the new president, Carol Folt, were leaning in that direction, that they were comfortable with Clay Helton. And look, in his defense, Clay Helton did a pretty good job with a team that ended 8-4. They lost their starting quarterback, JT Daniels, at the beginning of the year, and the team never quit on him. Now, it wasn't a great year, but it definitely wasn't a bad year, especially given they're playing with a true freshman quarterback. I think when a lot of people will look at this and say, oh, well, Clay Helton is, and they'll point to like a slightly better than 500 record when they don't have Sam Darnold. But that's not really fair, because he was the one who found Sam Darnold. He was the one who developed Sam Darnold. Now he has another 3-star guy who's much better than a 3-star guy, and Keaton Slovis at quarterback. And I think when the USC brass really looked at it, they said, okay, we have come out, especially with Carol Folt, the new president. Remember, USC has had all sorts of scandal. We both live out here on the West Coast. It's beyond just the football program.
Right.
And so I think they were going to be very careful with who she wanted to be as the face of the university, especially at this time. Now, a year from now, who knows what it's going to look like. From my reporting, I also heard that Clay Helton's buyout, along with the staff, is much more than it's been reported to be. And that's what somebody had told me, like I said, about 2 weeks ago. And so you started to kind of read the tea leaves. It was heading in that direction. I know a lot of the fans don't like that, and they're going to open up against Alabama.
Oh, boy.
If Alabama blows them off the field, then I think you're going to get a lot of people going, all right, he's been on the hot seat now for 3 years. That's hard for recruiting. I mean, they don't have a big class to sign anyway, because they don't have a lot of scholarship space the way it's worked out. But this recruiting class is going to be one of the lowest ranks probably they've ever had. But at the same time, the leadership feels comfortable with Clay Helton, and they're going to move forward whether the fans like it or not.
Okay, I got 3 minutes left, so let's quick hitter here. Was Bob Stoops close to Florida State or USC at all, or
No.
Okay.
No. Bob Stoops likes his situation. I don't think he was going to jump in the middle. Especially, Florida State has all kinds of administrative issues, and that's not something he would want a part of.
Why did Florida State do what it did?
Mike Norvell was kind of, to me, the default leader in the clubhouse. He's done a really good job at Memphis. A lot of people really like him as an offensive coach. I think he's probably about as good as they could have hoped to have gotten at this point, especially considering they're not sure who the AD or the president are going to be in the next couple of years.
Okay. And the odds are that Lincoln Riley's next game in Dallas will be for the Cowboys.
I don't like those odds. I just don't think Lincoln will ultimately leave what he's got right now. Wouldn't shock me if he left. But I think he knows I work for the best AD in college sports, and Joe Castiglione. I've got the staff I wanted to build around. We've gotten better on defense. We're recruiting well. I got a young family. The NFL will be there 5 years from now if I really want to do it.
So Urban Meyer there? I mean, that's the conversation right now.
I don't know. Our friend Daniel Jeremiah made a prediction to me a week or two ago saying he thinks that it will be Dan Mullen, who's an Urban Meyer protege, who, by the way, coached and developed Dak Prescott. And you know what? In terms of
as
visibility,
the next Dallas Cowboys head coach.
That's what DJ said. I had not heard that from anybody, unlike anybody else. But he kind of put about 2 + 2 + 2 and got there. And the part that is interesting is, remember, the Jimmy Jerry stuff blew up because of Jerry's ego and who he wants to be in place there. Dan Mullen's it's not to just besmirch him, but Urban Meyer is a big name. You bring him in there. I don't know. I don't know if Urban wants to jump back in the middle of the coaching chaos either. Maybe he'd be tempted by how do you not listen to the Dallas Cowboys though?
Right. Last minute I have for you here. The miles per hour on the campus in Oxford, Mississippi is 10 miles an hour, right?
It is 18.
18 miles an hour,
They're
right?
not giving Eli that much
No, I was about to say, it's 18 for Archie, right?
For Archie.
So does that mean, because again, they don't do anything without Archie Manning having some say. Was there an Archie Manning, Lane Kiffin conversation that actually did happen? And is there a transcript of it?
Is there a transcript?
Because I would love that.
Yeah, it's going to be rare. This is great for us in the media. I think it's good for the local scene in Oxford. I'm not sure it's really good for the SEC commissioner because Lane will stir stuff up for better or worse.
If Archie Manning and Lane Kiffin were put together in a room, I need the transcript. I need the conversation. It's got to have to be existing. That would be amazing. Thank you for being here, sir. I really appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
You got it. That's Bruce Feldman.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.